Hi. First, talking about me, I'm Iuri. I'm a principal engineer at Boozer. Boozer is a Brazilian company, so we have some buses, pink buses, and I'm saying that because most of my examples are about buses, so it's useful. And I'm from Brazil. How it started with, I will talk about my experience at Boozer and about another companies and another projects, and most of them start the same way. When you have a model, you have to convert it to a dictionary to serialize it, to pass through HTTP or something else. So at the end of the day, it's just a JSON. So we have to convert it, and there's not a simple way to do that. So most projects start with a simple method to just copy some attributes to a dictionary. So your view can just call it, and it works. It's a simple view, it's a JSON response. I list all my buses here. They are really simple. They just have their plates, so it works. But when we do that, we start to add more attributes to our serializer, this function. So we start with we start creating a problem here, because now I need to add an owner to my bus. So I have to serialize that. And when I do that with a foreign key, when I call the self owner, it's a query, and it's not explicit to a new developer, someone that don't know Django, and it still works. So now you have that. We have the same view with the same method, but now we have n+1 queries, and that's the problem that I had most of the time with Django and with most ORMs. It's not only Django fault. So we have that, and there's not an easy way to fix. So I started trying things. That example is when I joined the company, Boozer. It still is a fast-growing project. At the time, we were sponsoring a soccer team. We are doing TV ads, and it was November, so we had Black Friday there with crazy promotions. And the project was already big, so it was each model had a serialized method like that, not like that, with a lot of relationships. So our servers and our database were always overloaded, and my main job there was to start improving their code base, and that's the thing I'm doing since the beginning, 3 years ago. And it's an endless job, and I really like the subject. So how to fix it? Here we added owner, and now I have to make sure that I have only one query or something better than n+1 queries, because when I have just some objects, you don't even know it's a problem, but when you scale, it's a really bad problem, or with a huge volume of requests, you will understand how it works. So it's easy to fix. you can just change your queryset to add a select related. And that way, Django will do a join at the SQL level. And now I can have only one query again. But it's not good because my queryset is in my view and my serialization is defined somewhere else in the model, so it's not easy to handle it. And when it's just an example, but our code base had hundreds of views probably at that time, and now a lot more. So it's not easy to scale that code-wise. So Django has custom querysets where I can encapsulate this issue and create my, transform that in a two-step problem. First, I have to say what I want to serialize, what I want to load, that's the owner, and after that, I have to say that I want to serialize. So now it's in my model. So here is the custom queryset, and here is the, I'm overriding the default model manager. So now in my view, I can just call it to serialize, and after that, I can serialize, and I have only one query again. It works. It's better than the other solutions, but with the solution, we have only one serializer for all my model, and each view needs something different, needs more attributes or less attributes. In some cases, if I pass everything, I can expose sensitive data. So it's still not good. It's better than before. And because I have only one way to serialize, I will put there everything I need. So if I have 20 relationships, I will put everything there. But I probably never need all the 20. I need one in one view, another in other view. And if I don't have the option to reduce the problem, I just put everything there. So what we are seeing there, each view has different requirements, and my serialization must know what it needs to load, and that's all context dependent. So I have 3 steps. The first one, I'm loading the data. I'm doing some business logic things here, and after that, I serialize my data to send back to the client. And when we are creating our query sets, we are thinking about the first step. We load the data we need to do our business logic, but we forget the next part, that the serialization needs to know, the serialization needs data that were loaded before, or it will go to N+1 problems or to bad ways to load this data, and it's not good. And that's the reason I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to link loaded data with serialized data. And because of that, I created a library. It's Django Q Serializer. It's open source. You can install and check the GitHub. And how it works. I just first override my manager with a custom manager that my library will handle. And after that, I have to define serializers that know what they need to load. So in this case, I know I'm defining the serialize object function. That's the base function for this serializer. That needs the plate, and that needs the owner. So I can say for my serializer that you have to load select related. And following the past examples, you can just extend how it worked, and instead of calling to serialize with nothing, now you can call it with your custom serializer. And that way, the query will join with the company to load the owner, and when you use serializer, you have only one query. That way, we almost fix the problem. If I need each view needs a different serializer, and I can just create many serializers. Of course, you need to create it thinking about not if you create many serializers, it's difficult to maintain. So it's a bit catchy, but it's better than before. So here I have some examples, more complicated than the base one. Here I'm changing my query set, so I can use everything Django already has, and just return. I just override the prepare query set and return with everything I need. And when I'm going to serialize, I just use the defined state. I'm annotating the objects here. So I need that only in this case, so it's all encapsulated, and I don't need to see another file and another view, and I know everything about the serialization based on that. Another example, when I need external data, it's a common use case we have. In this case, I want to get my location of the buses. So I have a bus location service that doesn't matter what it does, but what matters is when I can override the process objects that receives all the objects, in this case are buses. So I get the geolocation for all my buses in a optimized way, and after that I just attach it to my object. So now when I will serialize that, I have access to my bus geolocation, and I can do that, and I know how I access the data before and how to attach it when I have to serialize. After I build that, I learned that it's really good to test how many carries I'm doing, and doing that, I guarantee that someone never will add another query by accident, and that's common. So now I can, it's just a simple Django test. I'm creating my bus here, my object, and with Baker, so I just tell him to fill all optional fields and relationships. So probably I'm covering most cases here just doing that, and I can test my serializer here, just asserting that will do only one query. The only query that it does is loading the buses inside here, the decorator, the context manager, and I know I know it has only one query, And it's very good because I can do that, and I can do that easily for almost all my serializers and my models in an easy way. Maybe it can stay inside the library because it's really useful test to do. This lib is, I like it to create this lib because it's easier to learn. When you start using it, it's a bit complicated than change your queryset, but when you have to do that, you are forced in the right path. You will always see what you have to load and what you can consume later, and it's easier to code review too because everything is together, and it's easier to test because you can query count and test only the serializer, not thinking about other parts of your system. So query counting is painful without this isolation. But it's not about this lib, my talk. It's more about the pattern that we found in a lot of projects. So that happens because Django don't have an easy way and an obvious way, like Zen of Python says. And at DjangoCon we already had a lot of talks talking about workarounds of or RM because it's a common issue. We need talks about select related, prefetch related, how to handle that with DRF that have serializers and other things. And we have other people working things near what I did. Most of these projects are new, so when I started, I already knew DRF, but I don't use that, and it has some issues. I already knew Django Auto Prefetch, but it doesn't solve the problem, it just hides it. You can, when you install Auto Prefetch, it will, when you execute a queryset, it will automatically load all related objects with the same pattern, and you don't know how it's doing their thing. And the problem here is you are not making the developer think about the problem. So you're just hiding it in a better way than before, but you're still hiding it. And here I linked some projects, Django Readers, Django Strawberry Plus that had a tutorial yesterday, Django Virtual Models that Flavio will talk tomorrow, and probably he will talk more about all of them. So it's a issue that I want to fix or improve how we do that with Django because it's really painful to me, and that's because I talked about it. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Iuri. We have time for a few questions, so if you've got a question, raise your hand.
Thank you, great talk. So I have a question. So I'm using, because I can see in my scenario where I can fit this in my project is not having those query sets in the views, and then I can move it easily to the serializer level. I'm just wondering, does it affect performance? Have you compared the performance between the traditional way and then using this package? Is it going to be decreased? Is it going to be the same, or is it going to be more?
I don't think it impacts performance. The serializer is really simple, and it just calls some functions. You can see the implementation at the repository, but the implementation is really simple. It don't have too much magic. It's just I just organize the code.
I know this is an impossible question to answer, but when would you say, like, because I feel like a lot of projects, it depends on the scale of the traffic or the performance, and like, you know, how do you know when to start thinking about this as a problem that you would, or is it part of your pitch is just use the library from the get-go and you'll never even have known? You know, like for when you're trying to quickly start with a project or on board, you know, how do you know when you've like crossed that level where it's important to optimize?
Yeah, I understand. I understand the question. When the project is small, you don't need to think about that. It will work for a long time, and it just works. But when you start thinking about that soon, you have it's easier to scale, because I'm saying about Q Serializer, but still today, 3 years later, I started at the company. We have a lot of serialized methods, and it's impossible to remove them because it's a lot of legacy code. So if you start soon, it will be easier to maintain the project. But I always started thinking about that when it's already crashing. All my projects were this way, so I don't recommend that.
We got another question. If there isn't, I'll slip one quick one in. You mentioned at the end there Django REST framework, and you said it had problems. Django REST framework always would have been my sort of go-to for serialization. I'm intrigued what problems you were coming up against.
First problem is you need to use DRF to use them, so it doesn't work for me, and I don't like it's related to a view set, so it's still far from the serializer is far from the query set, so it's difficult to see when you change somewhere. You have to change your query set, and it has the same problem at the end of the day.
Any other questions? We do.
Thank you, Iuri, for the talk. Have you considered combining your serialization object method with some kind of tool like Pydantic to format the data? For example, if you return a date time there, I guess you should format first to string, right?
Yeah.
So have you used those tools like Pydantic? I think it would be a great fit there.
Not yet, but it's a good idea, so maybe. He's Flavio that will talk tomorrow.
Got inside line. Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you very much, Iuri, for your contribution to the conference and a small token of appreciation from the organisers.
Thank you.